In the past couple of years in North Carolina, the news has been showing more about the subject of forced sterilization. Unfortunately, it is not a subject that is new to the issues of the United States. The first time that this was put into effect was in 1927 in Virginia, where forced sterilizations of mentally ill women was permitted and often carried out. The eugenics program in the United States was the first group of people who advocated for the forced sterilization of the mentally ill. The main focus of eugenicists was social Darwinism, or survival of the fittest. They believed that only the more perfect of the human race should be able to procreate. In between the years of 1927 and the 1970s, a total of 7,600 women were sterilized, in which 85% were women and 40% were non-white. In 1924 was the court case of Buck v. Bell, which ruled the sterilization of criminals to prevent pregnancy as a result of rape. The eugenicists' own rules were often violated, and near the end of the period of forced sterilization, mostly black men and women were victims. Eugenicists' ideals of social Darwinism were ways of having social control and social discrimination towards women. Social status of the women also played a large part in the determination of sterilization to ensure that more children would be born into higher society. Sadly, some women were sterilized with no knowledge after being in the hospital for an unrelated reason altogether. Due to eugenics also believing that there were not adequate services to support most of the lower to middle class and mentally ill women, many were sterilized to prevent any pregnancies, even in the case of rape. When World War II eventually came to a close, eugenics were shown in a mostly negative light due to Hitler, and so the time period of forced sterilization came to a close. As mentioned before, Buck v. Bell allowed for sterilization of Virginians as guaranteeing that the generation of imbeciles would not be passed down. Only a few states had laws awaiting sterilization, but none were in the process to try to repeal it. The Virginia Integrity Act of 1942 prevented the birth of mixed-race babies in hopes not to result in sterilization by banning interracial marriages. In March of 2003, the North Carolina Senate voted almost unanimously to allow the forced sterilizations of the mentally ill, but nearly a month later, this last link to the eugenics program was eliminated when the Senate voted to remove sterilizations altogether. In the eyes of eugenicists, more babies in the United States meant more government money was spent in unneeded ways, and sterilization was a good thing because it would save our economy a lot of money in the long run. As of 2002, 3 states, including California, Virginia, and Oregon, had publicly apologized for the sterilizations. North Carolina was the first state to offer to compensate all of the remaining victims $50,000, but for most women this did not make up for the years of childbearing that was lost in their lifetime. North Carolina remains the only state that is compensated for the sterilization, but more are taking steps to recognize what needs to be done.
Carolina. Her illiterate grandmother signed the sterilization papers with an X.
I've always been able to take care of myself. I've never been promiscuous. So how can people use these things to describe a child that had been abandoned or that had been raped by the neighbor? And then
it sounds to me like you're still
hurt. I am devastated. I am mad. I am mad. And I'm tired of hiding my feelings, and I want everybody to know who should pay.
Mental illness of relatives only slightly increases a child's chance of also being born with a mental illness, and so the women whom were sterilized were wrongfully accused. With North Carolina's big step to trying to make amends, the time of forced sterilization is now coming to a final close. Although the money could not compare to the potential lives lost, this was the closest thing to an apology that seemed possible.